here, back from Prince George, and I'm going to continue in our Bible study today. I want to thank Sarah Jane for setting this up. It's a little bit of a nicer lighting here in the library at the church, and a little bit of a nicer setting, so I appreciate that. So today we're going to do John 9:24 to the end of the chapter. We're going to talk about conversion and what that looks like and what it means biblically. And so let's open in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your amazing grace to us. We thank you for your love. We pray that you give us insight and wisdom into this scripture, and that you'll bless us with peace and protection during this time. Amen. So, just to let you know, I will be continuing in John, and in John's Gospel, as you know, it's 21 chapters, and by January, anyways, I'm going to start on the book of Revelation. So, yay! I know a lot of people are going to be intimidated by that or super excited. I think people will be very excited when they see what it really is about. But that means that I can only do certain parts of John, so I'm going to just hit some high points in the book over the next few weeks, and then hopefully we can go from there. So this is an interesting part. The man born blind, we talked about how he was his healing represented the undoing of the curse in the garden when he got the eyes to see by the spittle in the dirt, and how that was the recreation element of the one who was to bear his image, and how the pagan priests had done that to the images of their gods to make them see and hear and speak. Well, Jesus has done the same action, but demonstrated himself to be the creator God in the midst of this. Well, this doesn't go over with the Pharisaical group or the leadership of the Jews, because he does it on the Sabbath. And as I've said many a times, the problem with Sabbath is that if you break Sabbath, you're breaking the Torah, the law. And the reason they were particularly in angst about that is if you broke the law, then God's forgiveness wouldn't come to the people. And God's forgiveness was seen in their eyes as a geopolitical deliverance through the sword. And so Jesus, by doing these things on the Sabbath, in their mindset, was basically being a Benedict Arnold, anti-God, anti-Israel. So they have pulled aside this man, and of course there's been some, because it's never been seen before. So what happened was they've been debating now, and the man and his parents, remember it was who sinned, him or his parents, have both been interrogated by the Pharisee group, and both have been finding wanting, because they just keep saying this guy healed me. And now we're at this point now where the man who was born blind is brought back in because his parents haven't satisfied their need to get Jesus. In other words, they would have believed in healing, they're Pharisees, but they certainly would also believe that you have people out there who would manipulate and destroy your manipulate to cause healing, and that's probably what they think of Jesus, as a fake healer. Probably a fake healer in the sense of like the Egyptian priests in the Exodus story. So that's what they're trying to dig at. Where's this man's problem? Because he healed on the Sabbath. So the man, they call him back in, and they say, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner." Again, because he healed on the Sabbath. I mean, I know it sounds strange to us, but they would believe this. And this guy's now a threat to their whole nationalism. When he says give glory to God, it's a veiled threat. Tell the truth, because God, you're standing before God. And they said, he answered, "Whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." They said to him, "What did he do to you, and how did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I told you already." So they're just having trouble grasping this. And it's interesting that these people who understand the Old Testament are having trouble with this. The Old Testament is ripe with imageries of blindness becoming as a result of idolatry, and sight being the redemption. So if you go to Isaiah, say 6, the call of Isaiah, he says to them, basically, tell these people, go out and preach to these people and show them that they're blind and that they can't see, because the leaders of Israel in Isaiah's day were. In Isaiah 35, in the deliverance, he talks about giving sight to the blind so that those might be set free from idolatry. And so the fact that they have all these metaphors, and here they have an actual literal healing, and they can't theologically grasp what this means, is more of an indictment to them than anything else. And ironically, the man who was born blind, who they would have seen as cursed, don't forget, this is not a man that would have been understood to be a faithful Jew, because he would have been seen as cursed. He would never have been allowed in the temple. He would not have worshipped in the community. He would have been seen at the gates, but certainly not, he would have been ignored. It's often hard to understand that when you have a theological view or a world view that those who are suffering are cursed, then when you see the suffering, you see them as cursed, and even to help them is problematic, because are you going against God's curse? And so that's how they would have seen him in that culture. They also, it's kind of like Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was often understood as, from Westerners, especially Christians, as a hero for the incredible things she did. They don't see that in Hindu India, because they believe in karma, and they believe in justice, and they believe very firmly that people suffer because of their past lives or things they've done in this life. So she's an enigma to them at best, and probably problematic, because what she's doing is going against their view of the way the universe brings justice. All right, so he answered them, I told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples? Now, a lot of people say, boy, he's got some, he must have some courage to say that. And the truth is, I don't think he cares. When I worked in Wally, one of the things that I found fascinating was, when people are down and out enough, they just don't care. They'll say whatever's on their mind. This guy's been an outcast from day one from these people. And all of a sudden, the only reason they're interested in having this discussion is so that they can find Jesus, a fault in Jesus, the one who healed him. And I think he's at the point where he must be wondering what the heck's wrong with these people. I mean, literally, they're standing for a guy who was blind, and he now sees. And they reviled him, it says, saying, you are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. And there's where you see the idolatry. They're actually not disciples of God. They've created an intercessory and an intermediary, and that is Moses. Moses is a very flawed figure. Abraham, the other one, they claim he's a very flawed figure. There's always this sense that you should be a follower of Yahweh, who called those people, but you're not, as it were, to follow them. Yes, to listen to their teaching in ancient Israel, to see what Yahweh is saying through them, but there's where the idolatry, that's where we see the highlight, is that they have put Moses on a pedestal. And of course, it's not the true Moses, it's an interpretation that they have. The true Moses would not, at least the giver of the Torah, would not have treated people the way they were treating people. So, we know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from. Of course, that's that double entendre that you always find in Johannine or John literature. They're actually speaking the truth. They don't know where he's coming from, and that's the irony, right? Is that John's always playing these games with us, and it's fun to read because he's always noting that they don't know. They're the ones who claim to know, and they don't know. Ironically, it will be the man who discovers where he comes from, who was born blind, but we'll get to that. The man answered, and this is where the man gets very theological, and we end up with this very interesting theological response, if I can go that far, from this man who was sitting by the gate. Now, people have often wondered, well, is this just John putting words in his mouth? Well, the man's been sitting by the temple gates. He has been hearing theological arguments all his life. He's blind. He sits there, people walk by him, and why wouldn't he know theology? He probably knew it better than most of the disciples. Anyways, the man answered, why is this amazing thing? You do not know where he comes from? And yet he opened my eyes. Again, only Yahweh opens eyes. It has to do with the undoing of adultery in the garden. They're trying to be like God, knowing good and evil, and they don't even know where this man is coming from. Again, we know that Jesus comes from God and heaven. And yet he opened my eyes. We do not know that God, we know that God does not listen to sinners. Now that word is in the active verb. It's not that God would not listen to someone who sinned. They had a means even in ancient Israel of dealing with sin, the Day of Atonement, where they would sacrifice the lamb, and they have all the other sacrifices for sin. What this word is living in sin. Think of it as sinning. Like, if this guy was this bad, hardened person, in whatever area of life that is actively disobeying God, that's kind of what he's saying, okay? So, God does not listen to sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. That's wonderful truisms in Torah. That's the case. Now, of course, what we're going to find out in John's Gospel is that no one ultimately really does that. John's Gospel does not leave us with a high view of humanity. That's why there is the cross that intervenes in that case. Never since the world began have you heard anyone who has opened the eyes of a man born blind. Again, he's speaking truth, at least from the ancient literature. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. So, they answered him, and here is where we see their mistake. They actually speak the truth. They said, you were born in utter singular sin. This word sin in this particular case is tied to idolatry. The key problem, as I've tried to explain again and again, from the creation narrative on, is that the temptation is to try and be like God, knowing good from evil. And through that, becoming God yourself. Or making an image of something that bears your image. So you become an idol worshiper, a literal idol worshiper. This is what the idea of the sin means. It's to miss the mark. Sinning is the verb or the fruit of the missing the mark or the idol worshiping. So all of the sins of the world, those things people do to dehumanize each other in creation and to dishonor God, are all fruits of this sin. And they say you were born in utter sin. Well, they're right in the sense of all humanity is a child of Adam, in the sense of bound by this adulterous nature, inherent nature. And by the way, if you don't believe that children are human beings are born in sin, you've never raised a 2-year-old. With that being said, there's a certain reality. And again, when I say this, it doesn't mean that because you're born in this idolatry that you're always going to do the most evil thing, or that you're going to do the most evil thing most of the time. It just simply means, this word to be born in sin, means that you by your nature, me by my nature, and these people by their nature, are all bound to this temptation, to this reality that if left on our own, we're going to go and try and become like God. It's all going to be about self, and this man they've accused of being born. And so that's exactly what Jesus came to heal him. Because he needs to redo this man who is as bound by the idolatry of his world. He needs new life. He needs to be able to see, hear, and speak, just like the Pharisees do. But they can't recognize this reality. So they said, you were born in utter sin. They couldn't have spoken more truth. And would you teach us? And they cast him out. Okay, so this is an interesting wordplay. We have the casting out now. Here they are, those who are the fruit of Adam, who was cast out of the garden. They run into a man who's been healed, who's been given new life, who actually should be welcomed back in the garden, but they're now casting him out of the community because they are showing that they think they're like God, that they can do this. It's a beautiful wordplay, and it's really the judgment on these Israelites, that they have decided that they're going to be like God. Jesus, hearing that they'd cast him out, so the God of the garden comes back, and he is decided he wants to bring him back in the fold. So here we see the nature of conversion, at least biblically. The man did nothing. He sat on the side, and God stepped in Jesus Christ, and he healed him of his adultery, or the symptoms of that symbolically. He atoned for, if I can use that language, atoned for his brokenness. And now the question is, what does that mean? So theologically, we all believe that Jesus Christ died for the sins and the sin of the world. Theologically, we believe he atoned. But the question is, so what? And so there's lots of debates on what that means. But ultimately, there still needs to be biblically a response. The healing by Jesus is full. The atonement done covers the world. But there is an opportunity still to live like Adam, to live like these Pharisees are currently living, to cast people out, to live in this very awful way because you want your own fiefdom, your own idol. You're still worshiping the idol, still wanting to be God. Or, as Jesus is going to give this guy this opportunity now, the options are, you can continue in the way you are, you can continue as that. Even though Jesus has brought the healing for the world, you can decide to turn your back on it. Or, in the case may be, when Jesus comes into your life, in this case, this man, he literally comes up, There is the offer of this relationship being restored, the realization of who Jesus is, and that is the salvation from the curse you were born with. That's the theological. So yes, it is the God doing everything for us that could do nothing. We were like the blind man sitting by the temple gate. But ultimately, we need to respond. We need to say yes to God's yes. And some people, and that's the warning of the scripture. It's John's full warnings against if you don't choose to go this way, it's a sad testimony of where you'll end up. So Jesus heard they had cast him out, and he found the man. He said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" It's interesting here that they use as the Son of Man, not the Son of God. There's a lot of debate on why that is, but I think one of the stronger arguments is when he emphasizes the Son of Man, he's emphasizing God for man. When he's emphasizing Son of God, he's emphasizing God, man for God. So this is God for man, perhaps. That's why he uses this language, Son of Man. He could also be using Daniel 7. So do you believe in the Son of Man? In other words, do you believe that this is the one that's going to set you right, this completely right relationship with God? He answered, "And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" So he, like everyone else, does not know yet the identity of who the Son of Man is. But the difference is Jesus says, "You have seen him. It is he who speaks to you." And so there is the self-identification of God, Jesus as God. And here we see what we're going to see next is a very interesting moment that is, again, points to a high view of Jesus' Christology. He says, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. The word worship here is he fell prostrate on the ground in front of him. It's not actual like he worshipped, he started singing songs or something like that, but the idea is he stood there, he sees that he believes it, and he totally abandons himself, and he puts himself under this God, and he becomes the true human at that moment, because he's in right relationship. And this idea of prostrating yourself in front of any human being in the Old Testament is considered idolatry unless it's God. The only people that you would ever prostrate yourself from is in front of God, or the angel of the Lord, which is a representation of God in the Old Testament. So the fact that he flat on his face against this man demonstrates that he sees him as divine, or at least whether he knows that or not, that's the image. And the fact Jesus doesn't rebuke him. Like in other cases, you'll see Paul, where they will start to worship him and he'll say, "No, I'm just a man." That's the healthy response of prophets and teachers. But Jesus accepts this worship, and that's the ultimate end goal of salvation, is this right relationship and true worship. Instead of self-worship, instead of making yourself like God, you let God be God in your life. "I believe," and he worshipped him. Jesus said, "For judgment came into the world. For judgment I came into this world." And this is a tough one to understand, but I'll quickly try and hit it. "That those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind." Some people read that and say, well, Jesus came in then for some people to be healed and some not. No, it's a little more complex than that. What he's saying is, I came in for judgment, and we need judgment. We need judgment against our idolatry. We need judgment against our systematic evils that whether those are corporately or individually. The fact is we need mercy even more, but we need the judgment. We need righteousness. A non-judgmental God is not a good God. That means they don't want to stand up against things that we abhor, like pedophilia or other sins against creation and the world. But this God has come so as to give sight to the blind. In other words, the blind in this case are those who know they're idolaters, like the man represented by the man born blind, or others in the world who recognize their absolute brokenness. Those would be those who are born blind that he came to give sight to. But he also says he's come to make blind those who see. Well, he can't heal somebody who falsely thinks they've arrived. So he's wanting to cause the blindness to come to those who are spiritually unaware that they're blind. Those who are religious idolaters, like these Pharisees. The gift of Jesus is he's come to judge, and he's come to show them their blindness so that maybe they may see they're blind and then see. Because right now they think they see, as we're going to find out. And he needs to expose them as being blind. That's what he means by he says, I've come to give sight to the blind. And for those who think they see, I'm going to cause blindness. With the hope of it eventually leading. It's the gift of God to come to someone who's an adulterer who thinks they've spiritually arrived and call that into question, because that gives them a hope of redemption. Some of the Pharisees near heard him saying these things and said, "Are we also blind?" Of course, they don't think so. They've already made it very clear that he's born in sin; they're not. Well, that's the implication. He's the one born blind. He's the one God's cursed. They're obviously not. They believe they've arrived. They have the right name, the right finances, and all that, and the right religious views. And Jesus said to them, if you were blind, you would have no guilt. In other words, if you were blind, you're just living out your natural inclination, and your guilt that you're continuing to hold as adulterers would not be there. But now you say, we see, your guilt remains. In other words, there's nothing left really for me to say, Jesus is saying, because you already think you've arrived. Even though you're idol worshippers, and you're blind, you say you see. So there's nothing really there for me to heal. You are bound in it. And that's ultimately the issue at hand here. So that Jesus is an adult. Jesus is coming into the world of adulterers. He's come to bring healing for all of us through the cross. He's healed the world through the cross. He's God so loved the world. He says it is finished. And now the option is for us whether we will receive that, believe in him. That's what that really means, is believing upon him to do that, and then enter in right relationship through proper worship, or whether we do it through religion or politics or whatever, that we allow the adultery to continue in our lives as having being more important than this God, finding our own way, trying to be like God. And so that's the picture here. And so that, I think, is the choice. I hope that this has been helpful. I'm done. I think I'm going to tackle the Good Shepherd next week. I'll be preaching on this week, and I look forward to hearing from you guys then. Now, again, thank you, Sarah Jane, for the setup. All right. Have a good day.